Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to the channel. If you're new or if you've been here before, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a good Saturday. We have 3 of the final 4 teams decided. We might get the 4th team decided tonight, but I'm curious. I'm curious of something. Because I remember I talked about how the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Dallas Cowboys are very similar in how they're always talked about in the media. The coverage of the Toronto Maple Leafs in Canada and the coverage of the Dallas Cowboys here in the United States is practically identical. It's basically all that's talked about. The results, though, are not there. And they're worth the most money in their respective sports, but yet they don't win. Well, and one thing that always gets me, especially about Dallas Cowboy fans, is the fact that every time they lose, they have not made a conference championship game since 1995. Just like the Toronto Maple Leafs had not made it past the second round. They haven't made it to their conference championship since, 94? I think it was 94 because I think they went to back-to-back Campbell Conference finals. They were in the Campbell Conference at the time. And, of course, 93, they lost to L.A. And I think 94 is, I think when they went in 94, that's when they lost to Vancouver. Well, I'm noticing, though, now, because the Dallas Cowboys, at least the Toronto Maple Leaf fans, at least I haven't heard a lot of them, have, come out and say every time they lose in the first round, we're going to win the Stanley Cup next year. We're going to win the Stanley Cup. We're going to win it next year. I don't hear a lot of Leaf fans saying that. Actually, I don't really think I've heard anybody say that. Not even Steve Dangle and his friends are like the biggest Maple Leaf fans. They don't even say that stuff. Dallas Cowboy fans, every year, we're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right? We're going to win the Super Bowl. Well, I've noticed, especially now this year, I heard it a little bit last year, and now I'm hearing it big time again this year. Colorado Avalanche fans. You win the Stanley Cup in 2020 in 2022. Awesome. That's a hell of an accomplishment. You've come up short now the last 2 years. You lost last year in the first round to Seattle. This year you lose to Dallas in the divisional final. Well, I've noticed the last 2 years for them. Now, I mean, granted, they're only a couple years removed from a Stanley Cup. But they're starting to pull the Dallas Cowboy thing. They get knocked out by Seattle. We're going to win the Stanley Cup next year, right? This year, they get knocked out by Dallas in 6 games. And the fans are and the Avs fans are doing it again. We're going to win the Stanley Cup next year. We're going to win the Stanley Cup next year. Stop with this. My God, will you guys stop? I understand about being fans. You think us in Minnesota? I mean, trust. Nobody here in Minnesota, when it comes to our teams, nobody goes. None of our fans go and say when the Vikings lose in the playoffs, when the Twins lose, when the Wolves lose, whatever. Nobody's going and saying, we're going to win the championship next year. We're going to win the championship next year. Next year, we're going to win the championship. That doesn't happen because Minnesota is the king of choking when it comes to sports. Our state are the biggest choke artists in sports, which is interesting that you have the Minnesota Timberwolves about to play a Game 7 against, oddly enough, Denver. The Denver Nuggets, the defending NBA champions. They're playing a Game 7. Now, if the Timberwolves lose, will you really call that a choke? I don't know necessarily if you really would call that a choke. You could, maybe. But I mean, you are playing the defending champions. So I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily call if Minnesota loses a choke. But I guarantee you're not going to hear Timberwolves fans, if they do lose, you're not going to hear Timberwolves fans going and saying, we're going to win the NBA championship next year, right? We're going to win the NBA championship next year, right? You don't hear that. That doesn't happen in this state because we as fans, at least us fans with any common sense, we know better. We know better. But some of these other places, my God, they just don't get it. They don't, I understand being a fan. But, to come out and go and say, we're going to win the cup next year. We're going to win the championship. Next year, we're going to win it all. No. How do you know? You don't know. You don't know because you haven't played yet. I mean, I don't even hear Dallas Star fans going and saying, now, this is the Dallas Stars' second straight year in the conference final. I didn't hear the Dallas Star fans last year when they got beat by Vegas in the conference final. I didn't hear them going and saying, we're going to win the Stanley Cup next year, right? I didn't hear that. Are we going to hear that if Dallas doesn't make the final this year? If they don't, are we going to hear the Dallas Star fans coming out and saying, we're going to win the Stanley Cup next year, right? We're going to win it all next year, right? I don't get it. What is with the fan bases? Why? Again, I understand. Be a fan. It's awesome. Be a fan. But to keep the whole thing, we're going to win it all next year, right? Dallas Cowboy fans, we're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right? Even though they always lose in the first round. Toronto Maple Leaf fans, I've never heard the Maple Leaf fans going and saying this. They've made it out of the first round one time since 2004. I never have heard Leaf fans, and I've got a couple of good friends who are diehard Maple Leaf fans. They don't even say this. They don't even say when they get knocked out, we're going to win the cup next year, right? They know better. They've seen the team. They live with that team. They know what goes on. They know they're not, we're going to win the cup next year, right? No, because people are going to look at them and be like, what are you smoking? What are you high on? It's crazy. I don't understand it. I get being a fan, but enough with the whole, we go and we lose in the playoffs. We're going to win the championship next year, right? No, because that almost guarantees you're not going to win the championship next year. Just, play your game, do your thing. Trust the fact that you've got a good team. But don't keep going and coming out and saying every year, we're going to win we're going to win it again next year, right? We're going to win next year. And I understand the Colorado Avalanche fans, they've got a lot to brag about. They won the cup 2 years ago. 2022, they won the Stanley Cup. So I get it. I get about being passionate, but coming out and saying, and continuing to proclaim, we're going to win the championship again. If you're just coming off a championship, and another thing about Colorado Avalanche fans that I've seen, and I'm not doing this to crap on Avalanche fans. I'm not, because they're a very passionate fan base, as are us here in Minnesota, and they've got a hell of a team. But when I see Avalanche fans going and saying, God, it'd be a shame, it'd be a travesty if Landeskog, Rantanen, McKinnon, and Makar only won one Stanley Cup. Excuse me? How many Hall of Fame NHL players are in the Hall of Fame? Obviously, I say Hall of Fame NHL players in the Hall of Fame. It kind of explains itself. How many, though? How many Hall of Fame players went through their whole career and never won a Stanley Cup? Never won the cup. Some of them never even played and never even got to the finals I mean, or maybe you've only had one crack at it. I mean, I can name a few right off the top of my head. Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Dale Hunter, just off the top of my head. Think of as I'm talking about Colorado Avalanche fans, Ray Bourque. It took Ray Bourque going to Colorado to finally get himself the Stanley Cup. If he doesn't go to Colorado, he ends his career, he retires, and never wins a Stanley Cup. How do you think that would have, I mean, players who've played for many, many years and never won the Stanley Cup. And, and here's, God, it'd be a travesty if these guys only won one. Alex Ovechkin may only go down winning one. I don't think Ovi would mind. I mean, yes, everybody compares, him and Crosby, and they can keep saying Crosby's got 3, Ovi's got 1. Yeah, well, Ovechkin's gonna do something that Crosby isn't gonna do. He's gonna catch Wayne Gretzky's goal record. Crosby's not doing that. But you don't. I look at the fact that there are 2 fantastic players. Yes, Crosby's got 3 Stanley Cups. Ovi, thankfully, Ovi at least got the 1. I mean, how would that have gone? How would people have looked at Ovechkin's career if he would have passed Wayne Gretzky's goal record and all that? Oh, but he didn't win a Stanley Cup. That would have probably driven Ovechkin a little bit crazy. And a lot of people would have gone and said, well, I guess, he just really wasn't that good. No, he was that good. And honestly, if Ovi goes down only winning 1 Stanley Cup, okay, I don't think he'd mind. So, this idea that, it's so bad if they only win 1 Stanley Cup. You've got your name on the Stanley Cup. I don't care how many times. If you get your name on the Stanley Cup once, your career's made. Your career is made. I just, it's crazy to me. And, like I said, I'm not here to dump on Avalanche fans, but good Lord, enough with the whole, we're going to win it again next year, right? Just stop. Come on. Nothing is guaranteed. You're not guaranteed to win anything the following year. You're in a league with 31 other teams that are all vying for the same thing. If you win it, great. Don't come right out and say, we're going to win it again next year, right? I mean, yes, have faith in your team. I love that. Have faith in your team. You've got faith in your team. But enough with the whole, we're going to win it again next year, right? Even though you've done, even though you do nothing that has ever proven that you're going to even get close. The Avalanche, they're going to be a contender for a long time. They are. But you're not going to win it every year. You're guaranteed to not win it every year. I mean, Tampa Bay Lightning fans. I never heard Tampa Bay Lightning fans going and saying after they won 2 in a row, we're going to win it again next year. We're going to go 3 in a row. They went to 3 straight finals. They didn't win that 3rd one, but they went there. But they didn't come out and say, we're going to win it again next year, right? We're going to win it again next year, right? It's just, be a fan, but oh my God, enough with the whole, we're going to win it again next year, right? When you've just lost. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think though about that. Does that drive you guys nuts? When you hear some fan bases going and constantly saying, even after you go and lose, we're going to win it again next year, right? Does it drive you nuts? It kind of drives me nuts to hear. I mean, I love the passion. Be passionate fans. But this whole thing of, I guarantee we're going to win it again next year. Nothing is guaranteed. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. And do you guys know fans that do that? And how do you feel about it? Do you think they're overhyping their team? Or are they just passionate fans that truly believe that their team is going to win it every single year? It drives me nuts after a while hearing a lot of these fans going and saying, "Oh, we're going to win it again next year. We're going to win it again next year. Next year we got it." Nothing's guaranteed. Let me know, though, what you guys think. Hit that like button. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So hit that thumbs up. Also, if you would please hit that subscribe button, that would also be greatly appreciated. And if you would like to share this video with whoever, friends, family, whatever, go right ahead. That would be awesome too. And it's gone a little longer than I intended, but I mean, as I'm kind of going, I thought of a couple other things and thought I would throw it in there. So, but again, let me know what you guys think. Does it drive you guys nuts to hear fans of different teams continuing to go and say after they lose, we're going to win again next year? I know it drives me nuts listening to Dallas Cowboy fans say it all the time. And I know it Stephen A. Smith he feeds on that stuff because he always knows, he's going to have the last laugh at it. But again, let me know what you guys think. I think it can be annoying after a while, but let me know what you guys think. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later.